Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Parkour. I'm Brian Parks, and in this video I want to talk about another type of vulnerability that came up on the security scan that I did on Monday. So yesterday we talked about cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, and today I want to talk about unsafe cookies. Now I kind of alluded to them in Monday's video, which if you haven't seen that, I'll leave that linked down below. But unsafe cookies are kind of an interesting one. If you've been in web development for a long time, you know that I want to say like 15 years ago there was this big push. Everybody thought cookies were dangerous, right? This was when everybody was recommending that you turn off JavaScript, disable JavaScript in your browser. If you want to have some fun, go ahead and disable JavaScript in your browser if that's even possible today, and see how much of the web is actually usable. It is rapidly approaching 0% of the web. So thankfully that was short-lived because JavaScript, when used properly, can definitely enhance the experience of a web page, right? Cookies are something entirely other. Cookies are just little bits of plain text, nothing more than that, that are stored in your browser, and it's associated with a particular domain on the web. So when you go to www.google.com, Google says, hey, I've seen this person before, or, well, I guess the first time, hey, I've never seen this person before. Let's give them a cookie that we can save in their browser so that when they come back, we can recognize that they are the same user. We don't really know who they are. We just know that they're a user that we know they're a visitor that we've seen before, or at least a browser that we've seen before, right? And that's really all it is. Basically, these little snippets of text get passed back and forth when you visit pages on a particular domain or subdomain. Basically, when a response comes back in the HTTP headers, one thing that it can provide is a set cookie instruction, which instructs the browser to save this little snippet of text, and then on every single request to that website, the browser will automatically include those cookies along with the request. And that this kind of facilitates that session-based experience, because HTTP by itself is just requests and responses. It is completely stateless. So the protocol itself has no knowledge that you are a particular user or it's the same session or anything like that. It's entirely facilitated through these cookies. There are other ways to do it, but for this discussion, we're just talking about cookies. Now, where that becomes an issue is, let's say you go off to, I don't know, your favorite blog, which is monetized, which has ads on it, right? Those ads are typically not served by the same domain as the blog that you went to. They are served up by, say, Google, right? So in order to make the web request to get those ads, your browser has to make a request to that other domain, which means that while you're looking at, myfavoriteblog.com, the web browser makes a request to this other domain, and it doesn't send the cookies for myfavoriteblog.com. It sends the cookies for, google.com, whatever site is serving the ads. So even though you are not directly visiting that ad site knows that you are visiting another site. And because of some other details, this is how, at least, a few years ago, this is how ad tracking was done, so that ads would follow you around the internet. Those methods have gotten a little bit more sophisticated, but the same basic premise is there. But that's, yes, that is cookie related, but that's not what we're talking about here when we're talking about unsafe cookies. What I'm talking about with unsafe cookies is when an application sets a cookie, there are 3 parameters that it can set. One is the path that it should apply to. The second one is something called HTTP only, and the third one is something called secure. So the first one is a path, right? So this is useful if, say, your web application runs on a path within the web server. So if it doesn't just run at, myfavoriteblog.com, but myfavoriteblog.com/store or something like that, right? So you can set a cookie that's not just for the domain, but actually for a specific path on that domain. And that, I would recommend that. That's something that's probably not going to show up on security scan because that's really context specific. That's not necessarily something that a security scan can determine is right or wrong. The cookie that's being set, it might apply to the entire web app or the entire domain, or it might only apply to a specific subdirectory. The scanner has absolutely no idea, so it can't report that. But that's something to be mindful of when you're doing this. The second one, HTTP only. This one is, it kind of helps cut down on things like cross-site scripting attacks and, or at least the severity, the impact of things like cross-site scripting attacks or cross-site request forgery, because it indicates that this cookie is only to be used in HTTP requests and responses. It should not be exposed to JavaScript. You can actually get to the cookies in JavaScript by, I think it's document.cookie, will get you all of the cookies and their values, except for any cookies that are marked HTTP only. And actually in DevTools, if you look at, I think it's the application tab, they've moved it around a few times in Chrome. So I think it's the application tab. You can see the cookies for the sites that are involved in the current page you're looking at. And some of the columns indicate whether a cookie is HTTP only. So good cookies to make HTTP only are things like session cookies, the session token that indicates to the server that the user is authenticated. That's the big one. Others, use your discretion. There are some others that maybe you do want JavaScript to have access to, but these days, if you're storing something for the purposes of JavaScript being able to use it, there are other ways to store it, things like local storage or IndexedDB, those sorts of things. So a cookie is probably not the right thing for that anyway, but if you definitely want to make sure that JavaScript doesn't have access to it, or JavaScript never needs access to it, again, like a session cookie, that would be a great thing to make HTTP only. And the final one is secure. This one indicates that the cookie should only be transferred not only over HTTPS, well, actually it's a completely different setting. So just by setting the secure flag doesn't mean it's not accessible to JavaScript, but it does mean that it won't be sent with any request that isn't over a secure channel. So if you went to HTTPS, myfavoriteblog.com, and got a cookie that was marked secure, and then went to HTTP, myfavoriteblog.com, that cookie would not get sent along with the request. So this is good for anything that might be of a sensitive nature. Again, you shouldn't be really storing anything that's of a sensitive nature in cookies, but the session token is a good instance for this, because by using a secure channel, you significantly reduce the potential for man-in-the-middle attacks. If you're not using a secure channel and that session cookie is totally okay to get sent out with those requests, there could be someone sitting in the middle sniffing the traffic, pulling those cookies out, and now they can do a session hijacking or session impersonation attack and basically act as that user who was logged in with that session cookie. So that's bad. So in short, the three things you want to watch out for are HTTP only, secure, and the path that the cookie applies to. So those three things are really things to look out for. And in Glassminnow, there were a couple vulnerabilities. There's at least one cookie that I'm setting in a few places that really should have those flags set, and those showed up on the security scan, which is unsurprising, but also good that they did show up there. So those are things that I will be changing. I might do a video on that. That's a fairly small change. If you want to see that in a video, go ahead and leave a comment down below and let me know. Otherwise, I'll move on to some more meaty topics. Cross-site scripting is definitely going to be one of them. After I recorded yesterday's video, I realized that I didn't talk about how to fix or address cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, which I actually think is okay because that would have made the video super long, and I really want to show code for that one. So stay tuned for another video in the future where I will share my screen. We will fix some cross-site scripting vulnerabilities together on camera, and make sure you click that subscribe button and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when that video gets released. Also, be sure to hit that like button if you like this video, and comment below to ask questions, suggest future topics, start a conversation. I'm always happy to answer comments. I try to pay attention and reply to as many of them as I can, because I really enjoy making this a conversation about how we can all write code better, and especially in this case, how we can write secure code better. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.